That's a very interesting and practical question. There is, among students of theorists of second language acquisition, there is a controversy, a perfectly sensible controversy about exactly this question. Does the basic faculty of language, UG, enter crucially into second language acquisition? Or is second language acquisition a process that kind of builds on what the first language is? It's probably a mixture of both. And there are also individual differences. There are people, overwhelming, the very large majority of people past the age of puberty have difficulty acquiring second languages or third languages. The children have no problem. A child can easily learn 5 or 6 languages simultaneously, not even aware that they're different languages. There are many parts of the world, West Africa, other places, where a child will have one way of talking to their mother, different way of talking to their father, another way of talking to their aunt, another way of talking to the children in the streets. They just all come automatically. I mean, my oldest friend, who co-founder of generative grammar, Morris Halley, died recently. He grew up in Eastern Europe, in Latvia. And when he was a child, he knew 5 languages. He told me he wasn't even aware that they were different languages till he was about 4 or 5 years old. It suddenly struck him he's speaking different languages. There's just different ways in which you talk to people. And we all do this at some level. So my parents were immigrants. So their language was not, their basic language was actually Yiddish. And they were fluent in English, but I didn't speak their language. I spoke the language of the small sector of the city where I lived, the language of the children in the streets. That's my language. And we all do that to some extent. But when you get to a certain age, past what's called a critical period, typically around puberty, it does become much more difficult. And then the question that you're raising arises. In that later stage, are we using the fixed faculty of language, which reflexively gave us the early languages that we know, though using it with more difficulty, or are we using different mechanisms when we learn the second language? Are we building on the language we already know and modifying and extending it? And does the answer to that question suggest better ways of language teaching? These, I think, are all open questions. There are no very clear answers to them.